We're going to talk about workstation backup and recovery methods, a very important thing because a lot of folks, I think, go, well, all this stuff is done automatically, or as I say, automagically, but it isn't. You have to put some malice and forethought into your backup strategy. And to tell us more about this, we've got Juan Fernandez. Juan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, James.
Tell us a bit about yourself, and let's start talking about some backup strategies.
Yep. 28-year IT veteran. Started off at the help desk, worked my way up tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Have had several MSPs now and working on a new IT type company. So it's been a true pleasure.
Well, it's and we've gotten to know each other a bit over the years. Tell us a bit about where to start when it comes to backup.
I think one of the big things that we have to consider are a couple things, right? So we want to start at the end, and really understanding the need is probably the biggest reason we would want to do backup, right? Because everybody has a different need. And I think a couple questions we have to ask, whether it be, we're deciding on file level or image level, or, what critical applications we're working on, or cloud-based opportunities. It comes down to a couple of things, right? Recovery time objective, which is RTO, and recovery point objective, which is, and those two things are really essential questions to answer as you're starting to think up your backup and recovery plan. It's not just, I'm backing up just to back up. And to your point, it doesn't automatically happen. So we have to have a strategy around why we're doing it, the reason that we're doing it, and what is the meaningful way that we're doing it, and how quickly can we recover in the case of a disaster.
So don't just stampede into, okay, we're going to back up X, or we're going to use a specific tool. You've got to know what and why, more why, right? You're backing things.
Yeah, I think it's, what is the reason that we're backing it up? And are these applications, because the worst thing you want to do is back up everything that you don't need, right? What does it take? I mean, what is the business objective that we're trying to accomplish with our backups? And what's the critical data that we really need in the case of an emergency? And that'll really help solve some of those issues and questions and problems that you might have whenever thinking about what it is I should be backing up.
So should you start talking about file backup or application backup? Pick a scenario and let's start talking about some of the steps to take.
Yeah, well, I think it's all predicated on the business need, right? So if there's certain things like their business file that's important to them, or their financial file that's important to them, that's not in the cloud and it's backed up locally, obviously that would be a critical application file that we needed to restore to get the operation to keep the business running, right? Now, if it's in the cloud, and we have, say, certain, HR type documents that employees are, continuously editing, and we want to keep track of the time, dates, and stamps in which they made those changes, right? Then maybe the cloud is, and we turn on versioning, right? But you have to look at the use case, I think, for each one of them, and then apply a backup methodology to each.
Why is site storage such a big deal?
Oh, we can all tell the story. And I go back to many of my younger days where you backed something up, even as foolish as music, and then all of a sudden you don't have it anymore because the drive went bad, or we've used a storage drive that went bad, or something along those lines. It's the same thing in business, right? If we have it local and a major catastrophe happens, I don't have any way to get it back. And that's always been a biggest concern for businesses that are trying to stay in business, is that what happens when something bad happens. And so making sure that you have that offsite recovery point is essential to keeping things going.
A friend of mine had a small business in Northern California, and he moved his backup. He just shared it with a friend of his who was a block away, right? Well, that small town experienced a major fire not too long ago. They both lost their backups and everything, and that made their business, it made it a lot more difficult to recover. So just stories like that. Yeah, offsite often means a long ways away, right? There are even reasons why you bring things, miles away, right? Do backup.
Yeah, and in different, configurations, there are distance limits associated with the amount of space that it's dedicated as an offsite backup. So just having it offsite at a home that's maybe a mile away maybe not actually deemed appropriate, right? It might be a industry standard where it might be 16 miles away. So consider what offsite truly means when considering an offsite backup solution.
What about the 3-2-1 backup rule? What's insights about that?
Well, create a primary, have 2 copies of your data. Make sure you have at least 2 different types of data that are able to be backed up, and at least 1 backup offsite. I think that those are, in a perfect world scenario, we should follow that rule, because you really have, all of the recovery points back to the recovery point objective to really recover in a very speedily time, if you will.
Juan, thanks so much, man. Great insights about the importance of backup.
Thanks so much, James.